People, for those of you watching live or watching the archive later on, this is more of like a self-indulgent podcast. I want to introduce these guys who are on the podcast now because you may or may not be familiar with them. So this is like a games industry 2017 podcast. We're going to talk broad general gaming, what these guys think about, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony and that kind of thing. I want to introduce Nick the Boss first, and I want to go out on a limb and say Nick's my first subscriber, my very first subscriber. And even back then, we were talking about games first, like mainly games and indie Kickstarters and that kind of thing. So a shout out to Nick. And I'm joined by Zach Ryan, and I know some of you guys don't know what the Cons and the Karma is. We've got Facebook we've got a group on Facebook which Uzumaki Khan made for his subscribers. And I got chatting to Zach Ryan. He's a very frequent guy in Cons and the Karma. He seems to know his shit about gaming. We were talking for ages broadly about gaming topics, and it wasn't this my console is better than your console type shit that you get. So I wanted to bring him on because he's a good guy, and I wanted to get some topics and bounce some things around. So first thing I want to ask you guys, just an easy question I want to ask you guys is, what is your definition of hardcore and casual gamer? Does someone who plays World of Warcraft 24/7, does that make someone more hardcore than someone who plays only FIFA 24/7? And Nick kind of reminded me of that. People who just play GTA, FIFA, does that make someone who's a World of Warcraft player more hardcore than someone who's a FIFA player? What's your definition? I'll start with you, Nick. What's your definition of hardcore versus casual?
I think a hardcore player in the gaming industry, you are updated on what the news and stuff. I don't think, like, for example, my friends, they're casual in my opinion. Like, they don't know anything about the industry. They don't know what's going on. They aren't. The tastes aren't that good in my opinion. So I think. So so you'd say that it's not necessarily how many games someone plays. It's more about, broadly speaking, like holistically, how much someone follows the games industry generally. I think like you would. Yeah. And what about you, Zach? What's your definition of casual versus hardcore? Because I know everyone's got a different definition of it.
So I know a lot of people would say someone like a League of Legends player or something like World of Warcraft is hardcore because they consistently play this game. They know it so well. But I would actually say someone's more of a hardcore gamer if they play a variety of games over a period of time. So if you see them keep coming back to gaming as a whole, whether it be, RPGs one week, then shooters, like if they have a decent knowledge of gaming as a whole across a wide spectrum, I would say they're more hardcore of a gamer than someone who just keeps playing the same game over and over again.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with the definition. It's more about the diversity of games. You're not necessarily excluding some game types just because you're not into them. You want to know about them, even if you don't want to play them. And I think you're right. It's necessarily playing at least a relatively diverse group of games rather than just FIFA, that kind of thing. But would you say that, let's just say someone, people who play World of Warcraft like religiously, they would consider themselves hardcore gamers. Would you say that's wrong? Like that, because World of Warcraft has a hardcore community behind it, whereas FIFA may be more for the casual side. Would you agree that someone who plays World of Warcraft or League of Legends is more of a hardcore gamer than someone who plays FIFA?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's degrees to it, right? So just because they don't play a variety of games doesn't mean they're not necessarily hardcore, but I think there are degrees, there are different levels to it. So I don't want to put a ranking on it, but I would say, they're a hardcore gamer, but certainly you can be more hardcore than that.
Yeah. And what about you, Nick? Would you say that you're hardcore compared to your friends, like you were saying, but would you say that someone who plays League of Legends or these kind of MMOs like religiously is more hardcore or less hardcore than someone who plays FIFA religiously every day? What would you say?
I mean, like, if they branch out to other games, I wouldn't have a bigger problem with it. But I mean, I really don't know.
Yeah. That's cool. So now let me just start with the topics I want to talk about. Now, Nintendo's on everyone's kind of radar right now because with the recent release of the Switch and Zelda, everyone was going crazy, and rightly so. I can understand from that particular fan base why they would go crazy and that kind of thing. So, you finished Zelda recently, Nick, and you reviewed it. I saw your post in Cons of the Karma, and you were like, you really enjoyed it. You wouldn't maybe necessarily pick up Switch specifically for Zelda, but you do recommend people play it. Now that Zelda's had some time for people to play it, and like it's out of the way, do you guys think that people are going to realize what it really means to own a Switch console. You know, everyone who bought it day one. Now that Zelda's gone, they're faced with what, maybe 6-7 months of a certain lineup of games. So the ones I wrote down were ARMS, Puyo Puyo Tetris, Sonic game, a re-release of Mario Kart. Do you think now people are going to realize what it is they really bought into? And do you think that all these games that are coming out is what people expected to get, Nick? So let's start with you. What do you think about that?
I mean, the $300 Zelda machine is true. I mean, that's what I feel right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think they should have released the Switch a lot later, like fall maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe like a lot bigger titles have come out by then.
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
When they had most of the titles finished, you mean in that?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a Switch, I would probably be pretty disappointed. Like, but I never buy consoles on release day because I know most consoles are like that. Even PS4, I believe. I'm not sure, but most consoles don't have a complete library in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, you were able to play Zelda and finish it without even needing to look at a Switch. And, you know, and you're basically on the same page as everyone who has a Switch right now, who has played any sort of game of any prominence or that kind of thing. Zach, what do you think? Do you think people are going to start to realize now that the Zelda's had its moment, that the consoles, this is the true face of owning a Switch console?
Well, I mean, you know how I feel about Nintendo. I'm so against Nintendo at this point that I won't even buy their remastered consoles. I won't support them. I just can't bring myself to support the company. I mean, after all that they've done, you know, you can't deny that the industry might not even exist. Now, it certainly wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for Nintendo. But at the same time, it's like that doesn't mean that they can do no wrong and that they're this perfect company that, you know, you just have to keep supporting them forever just because of what they've done. I think that with the Switch, I think people knew going in that Zelda was all that was there, and they were willing to pay that price. And so I don't think they are upset, but I cannot justify getting into that ecosystem. If I can't bring myself to spend that much money on one game. I can't do it. As far as why they released it so early, I think they felt an obligation because they announced the game so long ago on the Wii U. They felt like they had to get it out, and they could have waited until the fall and had a better lineup, you know, with Odyssey and things like that. I just feel like they felt like they had to push it out of the door early, just because they had to make some sort of sales off the game. They announced it so long ago, it got delayed so many times, and I feel like they rushed it. The game was fine, but the system I don't think was ready. Even the stuff like the operating system, people say is lackluster. You have the left Joy-Con shutting off and things like that. They're just issues that shouldn't be.
Yeah. You think if Zelda, I mean, this might be a rhetorical question, but you think if Zelda hadn't come out on the Switch so early, it would have sold half as much as it did? Because really, that was the killer app in it for that console particularly, and really it was just to port over to the Switch. You think it would have done half as well? Yeah, sorry, Nick. You think it would have done? Switch would have done as well? I mean, it might be obvious, but sometimes it's not obvious. You know, if you see what I mean. Like, a lot of people were ready to leave the Wii U behind. I think a lot of people were like, "Look, man, if I'm going to play Zelda, I'm going to play on Switch." But you think if it hadn't come out and they were saying, "Okay, Switch might be coming, Zelda might be coming out a little later," you think it would have sold as much as it did?
You mean the Switch would have sold?
Yeah, the Switch. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would sold as much. I don't think there would have been a big as a difference.
Yeah.
Because
you don't think it would have been?
Like, nobody owned a Wii U. I feel like.
Yeah.
A lot of
actually
Switch players are new. That's what.
That's my opinion. I mean, there's always, and you know, like Zaki was saying, like you're always hesitant after you've been burned a bit. I mean, I'm pretty sure that no matter how popular the Wii was, the kind of gamers we know, even many gamers in Nakama, I would say that they were burned by the Wii, sorry, the Wii, and then maybe even to an extent the Wii U, because the kind of handful of games people played on Wii U, it's not as substantial as you might, you know, be playing on say Sony's PlayStation 4 or that kind of thing. So I think I agree with you in the sense that I know we're repeating ourselves, but for the viewers it's new, that you don't want to be in that ecosystem after you've been burnt, and you especially don't want to jump in head first before you've seen it play out a bit. Because we all saw what happened with the Wii U. You know, people thought the Wii U was going to be this crazy new thing, and you know, it didn't sell well. You know, and sales don't necessarily dictate the console's quality, but like GameCube, I love that, but it didn't sell well. But the Wii U really was a travesty when it came to software.
Actually, games. I think it had pretty good games.
The Wii U, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. If Zelda came out on the Wii U, like you'd want to end the Wii U generation, with Zelda. It's like what happened with Last of Us. You know, when the PlayStation 3 was on its way out, you know, before the PS4 came in, that killer app was The Last of Us. No one cared about Last of Us remaster. Not many people. Only some people who never played it. They were in the minority. But it's the same thing with that. Like Zelda on Wii U was a way to say goodbye to the Wii U. And then when the Switch came, you wanted something new. I think Mario Odyssey would have been a better launch game for a thing. And I agree with you, Nick, that if they'd waited and released Odyssey and Zelda for the launch, maybe it'd be a more compelling console. Because now in the next couple of months until Odyssey comes out, if it even comes out this year, you've really got ARMS. You got ones that take advantage of the waggle. You got Splatoon. Basically, like if you looked at Splatoon, you've seen that it doesn't look any different from the original Splatoon. It might actually be like a patch for Splatoon.
It looks like the same exact game, but they added new maps. That's it.
Yeah.
They might as well just port it over Splatoon 1 and release DLC.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this brings me on to my next question. Do you think Nintendo are good at making people, convincing people that something's more desirable than it is? I bring up the fact that, everyone was hyped for Switch. All the hype that came before Switch. What's the controller going to be like? What's the screen going to be like? And, Nintendo have a history of producing consoles in limited quantities. The NES Classic. People thought the NES Classic would be out for friggin' ages, and then they told now we capped it at a certain amount, so everyone was hype on it. Now when SNES Mini comes out, people are gonna be like, I have to get it only because I won't get a chance to get it later, rather than actually making an objective, critical decision on what games are on it or that kind of thing. Do you think? And also, I want to bring in the fact that Nintendo held a direct about Fable. They held a Nintendo Direct just around Fable. Fable's not big enough. I used to be a huge Fable fan. Fable's not big enough to have its own. Sorry, not Fable. Sorry, Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem. Oh, sorry, my bad. Right. Fable's gone now. So they held the Direct about Fire Emblem. And does it deserve its own Direct? Do Nintendo love to hype their stuff when it really is not as compelling? What do you think, Zach? I'll ask you first.
No way. Fire Emblem is definitely not in the top tier of Nintendo franchises. I feel like they sometimes are full of themselves and think that their own franchises are bigger than they actually are. And I don't think Fire Emblem has any business having its own Direct. Even Metroid, I don't think belongs having a Direct, even though we haven't had one so long. Maybe you could make the case because it's been so long and it would really hype people up, but Metroid's never been that kind of franchise. I think we all know the two franchises that deserve a Direct, and that game's already been announced, and we're going to hear more about it at E3. So, but no, as far as Fire Emblem, no, there's no way. I think that deserved a Direct. That's a waste of time.
I feel like Fire Emblem is one of the better games on the Nintendo consoles, especially on the 3DS. I really enjoyed. Like to play the GameCube, not GameCube, Game Boy Advance ones. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's one of the better strategy games, I feel.
Yeah. You feel that? Yeah, I mean, I've noticed as well that Fire Emblem seems to, even though the quality is maintained, like it's a decent game. Awakening, I think, on 3DS.
Every title getting 9s, 9.5s, and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think Nintendo, because Zelda, they wanted to wow everyone out the gate. They needed to get people to buy the Switch. But now with the kind of games they've got lined up, they really need to push them because they're not the things people expect. Where's the Donkey Kongs? Where's the next Star Fox? Where's the next Metroid? Where's some of Nintendo's franchises that people want to see come back? So there's a huge gap here where they're gonna be hyping up stuff like ARMS, which only the casuals will be interested in, and they have to play up Fire Emblem. They have to play up these games that they never used to play up that much, when they had the 3DS games. So I think, and also let me talk about the actual consoles and the SNES Mini and the NES Mini. Do you think Nintendo are such hype masters that they're going to convince consumers that their products are like a must-buy just because they're so rare to get, hard to get in such limited quantities. You think that's the case? Because they have a history with that kind of stuff. They had that with the DS, where they always like, oh man, get them now before it runs out. And even someone who doesn't want to plunk down full price for a console then and there, they'll only get it because they're told that they won't get the chance to get it later. You think they're good at that, or you think that's intentional? Or you think it's just Nintendo doing their business, man? What do you think, Nick?
I really don't think that way. I mean, there were apologized many times that they're ashamed of why there aren't that many consoles.
Yeah.
And it was one of the prime reasons that the SNES shut down and discontinued.
Yeah.
I think it's a stupid idea, but
yeah. I mean, that was all the CD here, innit? When stuff that was going to come out on SNES started coming out on PlayStation 1, innit? Because they wanted to remain with cartridges and 64. Yeah. And Sony came in with the CDs, which had more space, gave them developers more kind of leeway to do stuff. What about you, Zach? Before I end the question, would you think Nintendo they hype their products up way more than is, do you think they convince people that they should get the console on, just because of limited quantities and these kind of factors, rather than what's actually there?
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. Switch, we are already hearing about supply constraints, and this is happening with the Wii U. As far as the classic consoles, I think that was more of a way to try to undercut emulation, because they know so many people emulate their old games, and they wanted to squeeze as many sales out of the true hardcore Nintendo fans as they could. But yeah, they definitely create artificial supply constraints to force sales, which I think is such a strange thing to do, because if you had the adequate amount of units out in the wild, they would sell even more. So what is the point of holding back? It makes no sense to me personally.
Yeah, and I want to ask you guys one thing before I move on to talking about Sony. Is people say that if you're if you're a hardcore Nintendo fan, only they will get Switch day one. That's a statement that's been made. I'm sure you heard it. He goes, man, you don't have to plunk down that much money. If you're a real Nintendo fan, you'll get it day one. Do you think it's necessarily the case that it's only hardcore Nintendo fans that'll get the case? Because if you remember the Wii U, not every Nintendo fan and bona fide Nintendo fans didn't pick up the Wii U because they were really burnt on the Wii, and the Wii U didn't seem compelling. I would consider myself back then a hardcore Nintendo fan, and I didn't pick up the Wii or the Wii U and now the Switch because it didn't compel me. So what do you think of that statement, that only hardcore Nintendo fans buy Nintendo consoles, when the Wii U is testament to the fact that even Nintendo fans weren't buying Nintendo consoles? What do you guys think? Do you agree or disagree?
I think it's really stupid. Can't use this as argument to buy the Switch. I remember it was a Facebook post asking if you should buy the Switch, and said constantly like, if you're a Nintendo fan, you should definitely buy it. I don't think that's a valid argument to buy a console. Nintendo should make you buy the console, or have a good reason to buy the console, to make you buy the consoles.
And you need to look at, obviously, qualities like gaming, price point, these kind of things. It's not necessarily just because you're a Nintendo fan you have to buy the console. Then you're telling someone that you're literally just buying the console on the name alone, and not looking at the games that are going to be there for the 6-7 months, or looking at any other qualities about what the cost of extra controllers is, what the cost of actually owning a console is. What about you, Zach? Do you think that statement's correct, that only Nintendo fans buy Nintendo consoles day one?
No, but I think it's probably something like 80% of people that are big Nintendo fans that buy the consoles on day one, especially with the Switch. I think that if you buy something in the 300 to 400 range just for one game, I mean, you must be a huge fan if that's the case, because I don't think some casual person that's going around. I think of a casual fan that wanted to buy a game system, went into the store and they saw PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. They would see all of the all of the PS4 and Xbox One games across the wall, and 5 Switch games, and they would say, "Well, I can pay less money and I can get hundreds of games. With the Switch, I am very restricted and I'm paying more money." So I think you really have to be a hardcore fan. That said, I don't think everyone that buys Switch is a hardcore fan. I think some people are going to see TV advertisements of the portable nature of the console, and they're going to say, well, this is pretty cool, and they're going to buy it for that reason, similar to how people bought Wii for Wii Sports that weren't actually into it. But I think that most people that buy the Switch are very hardcore, certainly.
Yeah, it makes sense. And there's an interesting thing. I was watching you're familiar with kind of funny games and different podcasts of gaming, and there was a statistic that every console since the SNES has sold worse than the last, with the exception of the Wii. Yeah, except the Wii, of course. And that was like a once in a like lightning in a bottle kind of moment for Nintendo.
It was a gimmick.
Everyone's exactly, because of the gimmick. So I think it's indicative that Nintendo are heading in a direction which OG Nintendo fans aren't particularly happy with, and that old hardcore fan base of Nintendo has slightly started to trail off with each console that's come out. Would you guys want to see Nintendo head in this direction, or is there a particular direction you want Nintendo to head in? Would you want to return to the N64 type of consoles, the GameCube kind of consoles? What's your favorite Nintendo console? I'll ask you, Nick. What's your favorite Nintendo console?
I don't know. I haven't played all. Like, I haven't owned actually any of them. Like the physical ones.
Yeah.
So I don't think I have a real good opinion.
Was there an era of Nintendo where you thought the games were of higher quality than in certain other areas? What would your favorite era of Nintendo be? Just looking at the games that you're interested in, and some of the old classics that you kind of observed and so on.
Either SNES or GameCube.
SNES or GameCube, yeah. I think most would say that. I would certainly say that. What about you, Zach? Well, what era of Nintendo do you think, even if you didn't own all the consoles, what era of Nintendo do you think was the golden kind of age?
It's tough to say. I would say that the golden age is probably SNES. And not because of Nintendo's own first party entirely, but just because there was just so much third party support, with so many great games. But my favorite Nintendo game of all time is Super Mario World, so I would say SNES is my favorite, just from that.
Yeah. And I think Nintendo realized that, because the people always say that Nintendo make me buy my favorite game over and over and over again on Virtual Console, from Wii to Wii U to Switch. So they'll make you buy your favorite game over and over again, and you'll do it because those games are so near and dear to you. You'll be happy with just buying Zelda on Wii U, and you're fine. You won't want to have it on Switch when you've played it on. So Nick, I want to ask you, if you were to get Switch, would you re-buy Zelda for Switch and play it again on Switch?
No.
Would you do it? You wouldn't, yeah. A lot of people would though. That's the thing. Yeah, I know it's stupid, but you can kind of apply that to the catalog of games people do when they transition from console to console and that kind of thing. So next, I'll move on to Sony, and Sony's had a strong year this year. Even if you haven't played any of these games, you know that the first quarter this year was like Yakuza, Nier, Horizon, Persona 5. That was a strong lineup of games to come out, and it was and particularly Japanese support. And in the case of Persona and Nier, actual third parties make it second party exclusives basically for Sony. Do you think Sony can replicate this strong first quarter throughout the rest of the year? Because apart from God of War, I'm at a loss as to what Sony has for the rest of the year. Do you think Sony can replicate this, or do you think it was just like a one-off kind of thing with Sony? I'll start with you, Nick.
I actually don't know the games that are coming out, so I feel like if I haven't heard any, I feel like it's a one-off. I really don't.
Yeah. I've never seen
E3.
I think E3 is now the case now. Like no one knows no one knows what we're gonna get going into the future. But the fact that Sony can still get as Japanese second party exclusives, it's still kind of the fact that they can do no wrong in the industry, innit? Like their name is so out there. Nintendo do their own thing. Microsoft kind of burn their bridges with Japanese developers. What do you think about the strong kind of first quarter of this? And do you think Sony will have it this strong throughout the year into next year?
I think it's very unlikely. I think that this is more of a perfect storm. Like I think they kind of got lucky that so many games that weren't expected to be great lined up in such a small window of time. And then also, don't forget, Neo also came out to massive success.
Neo, sorry, I forgot that.
So, I really don't think there's any way they can replicate it. I mean, who knows? I think Days Gone is supposed to come this year as well, but who knows if that's going to be any good. And I don't know that God of War is actually confirmed for this year. I guess we'll find out soon. But aside from Days Gone, I don't know of anything else that Sony has for the fall. And they're going in Scorpio, so they need stuff. Certainly.
Yeah. Do you think Sony should have spread out the releases throughout this year of the games that all came out, like front-loaded it on 2017? You think it would be better to spread them across the year, or was it okay? Because I think Neo, for a lot of people that I know, I mean, a lot of people got Neo and it did well, but it kind of slipped through the cracks because of the big releases like Horizon, which was a new IP launch, and you had the big wigs like Persona 5 that have been talked about for ages. And some games I think would have fell through the crack. Do you think it was a smart decision, or do you think they should have spread out throughout the year?
I feel like they should have spread out for the first half of the year, maybe to E3 or maybe after E3, like late summer. Maybe titles will come after that, or I don't know. Like is
Zach,
Red Dead Redemption coming out this year? Is Red Dead Redemption is coming out?
Red Dead Redemption. Red Dead 2.
Is it coming out this year?
So the leaks have said that.
It could get pushed, but Rockstar usually are quite good with.
They know what they're doing. They wouldn't. They wouldn't allude to the fact that it's coming this year if it wasn't. There's no way. They know what they're doing.
I mean, even that is a strong game. It's a third-party game across both consoles. I think as far as third-party goes, I think the consoles are safe. I think this year the focus shifted to first parties, particularly because Zelda was so strong for Nintendo, Horizon was so strong for Sony. But for Microsoft, it was really bad because they've cancelled a bunch of exclusives that they had lined up. And now people are thinking, what the hell do they have left? Have you guys seen footage of Cuphead? That side-scrolling co-op, side-scrolling shooter that I got lined up. I think Microsoft are really pushing on that because that's been delayed many times. They either expect this to be a solid like boxed release, first-party exclusive. But do you think that's enough for the rest of the year? I know we haven't gone into E3 yet. But do you think for Microsoft that whatever that's coming up, Crackdown and Cuphead, that's going to be enough for that fan base to kind of play until they announce on the next games? Zach?
I would say no. I mean, I find it very hard to take Microsoft seriously at this point because I've said this before, but the fact that they release every exclusive on PC immediately invalidates the console. You could say, well, I get Xbox to play with my friends or to talk to my friends. Well, if you have Windows 10, you can download an Xbox app and you can actually use the Xbox Party Chat, and you don't even have to own a console. So you can talk to your friends and play on PC. There is literally no reason to own an Xbox. So it doesn't matter what they release if it also comes up on PC. That just invalidates any reason to spend the money on it.
What do you think of that situation?
I feel like one of the reasons you should get a Xbox One is because it's so cheap. Like it's like 140 pounds if I convert it here. For example, my friends or something, they maybe like only play FIFA or only play GTA. I think that's a good deal for them if they want to buy it. I feel that's the only reason to buy an Xbox One right now. Though Cuphead looks pretty good.
You think Microsoft, this is my opinion, but you think Microsoft, Phil Spencer's kind of conceded a loss? They've said, look, we put our hands up, we lost this generation, and now they're pushing the software more than the hardware. You think that's the case, or you think it's just bad decision? It was a decision they thought was good, but it ultimately turned out bad. Because I would say that they wouldn't do it if there wasn't a silver lining in it, which must be pushing software sales for Microsoft. You think that's the case, Zach? That is actually smart from it.
Yeah, that's definitely what that's the strategy. From what I can see, but I don't think it's a good strategy. I think that no matter what, Xbox One has lost this battle. Like you can't come back from it. Now it's not Phil Spencer's fault. Decisions were made before he was in place. He had no control over it, so he's doing the best that he can. He's trying to salvage as many sales out of Xbox One as he can. So I respect that, but I think that it's just it'll help. It'll certainly cancel out some of the lost Xbox One console sales, but I think there's nothing they can do at this point. Scorpio and PS4 Pro are not a new generation. They've said this. It's like a 0.5 generation. So I think Scorpio will do well, but I feel like it's at this point where it's just it's going to be so expensive, and it's going to be so much like a PC that it's just like, why not get a PC at that point? Yeah, that's my
think
take.
it's going to be well? I mean, the Scorpio, I think it's going to be a disaster or something. Like, I don't, not a disaster, but like, it's not going to.
You think it was a bad decision? Yeah, do you think it was a bad decision to make it a console in the family, Xbox One family, like Sony did with the Pro? Because I say that because if it doesn't look hopeful for Microsoft from the software lineup, it's not going to look hopeful for the Scorpio being in the Xbox One family. You think that was a bad decision? They actually should have heralded in a new generation of console by maybe beefing it up a slightly bit more. Native 4K, whatever they wanted to do. Do you think it was a smart decision to make it in the family, like Pro is now in the PS4 family, or do you think it's fine? Like, I know you said it's not fine, it's gonna bomb, but wouldn't it be better for them to herald a new generation? Do you agree or disagree to that, Zach?
I think that it was intentional to not start a new generation because I feel like they think PlayStation 4 is still riding high, and so even if they release a new generation, PS4 is going to be cheaper because new hardware costs more money. The cost is going to be higher no matter what they do, and so I think that they know they're competing against PlayStation 4, and they're trying to wait until PS4 has sort of like died down in sales before they do anything new.
Yeah, I mean, I felt it would have been organic or natural to, if you're going to say, look, we lost this generation on Xbox One on hardware, we want to push our software as much as we can. So does that give you hope then that this E3, that Microsoft are going to really kind of pull out the big guns for software? That is also going to be on Scorpio. You think that's going to be the case then? Nick and Zach, either of you.
I feel like, I actually don't know. I feel like
I don't know.
Hardware centric, the E3.
Yeah.
Scorpio, I think like everyone is anticipating the Scorpio. I feel like that's.
I hope it's a software centric. I know that they might push the Scorpio a lot more, but I'm hoping that people, if they're going to expect people to buy the Scorpio, you've got to get people excited for the games that are going to be on both consoles. They're going to be shared, isn't it? And I think they want people who are on PC to maybe move to the convenience of something like Scorpio. So they're gonna provide a kind of mid ground between Xbox One and PC for the people to kind of transition onto convenient consoles where you can just pick up and play and that kind of thing. So actually, next thing I want to talk about is more general, more third party focused. You know, lately we've got games coming out, especially with the new generation of games, where they either come out unfinished or they come out in a state which requires multiple patches later to fix it. In fact, some of the patches end up being bigger than the game itself, or as big as the original game. Now, some of the examples I wrote down were Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, obviously, that came out unfinished with Mission 51 controversially. It felt like that game was released in an unfinished state. There were chunks of areas and games and missions that felt like they were cut out. The game was released unfinished. And Mass Effect Andromeda, which has been patched constantly to get the animations up to scratch, to fix certain problems and glitches. You had No Man's Sky, which didn't come out with any of the features that people expected it to come, and then they said, look, we're going to fix it through patches. You had even FF15, like, they've had to patch it numerous times to add back a new version of Chapter 13, this kind of thing. You know, this patch culture that we've got now where everyone relies on that patch to fix the game after it's out. You think that's lazy developers, or is it impatient publishers? Do you think it's necessarily developers being lazy, or is it just the publishers so impatient that they force these companies to push out games like this? What do you think? I'll start with you, Nick.
I think it's the publisher's fault. I feel like, I know it's kind of ironic for me to say, I feel like we are blaming everything on the publishers without knowing really what's behind the scenes. I feel like that's... Everyone blames the bad Call of Duty on Activision, not thinking about how Sledgehammer or whatever, how they produce the games.
Yeah.
Those Activision are pretty cancerous, in my opinion.
Like, you think Yeah. Do you think the publishers, because they're so front facing, they deal with the PR, they deal with all the marketing stuff, that they get the blame when? So would you say that developers can be lazy, or can be lazy when it comes to pushing these games out?
I feel like they can.
Yeah.
Though, I feel like we have so little data on what actually goes behind the scenes. That's what I feel.
They have to cover in it, and publishers have to cover for the develop. Yeah. So what do you think, Zach? Do you think it's impatient publishers or lazy developers?
I would say most of the time it's probably the publisher, because they've invested so much money in the game that they need to see a return just for business reasons.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
You can't blame them entirely, but at the same time, games do suffer for it. There are definitely lazy developers who cut corners, but I think in most cases it's probably the publisher. There are numerous third-party games that have come out in recent years. Like you look at Destiny with Bungie, who got rushed out by Activision, and then that game got terrible reviews. You look at Final Fantasy. See, that's sort of like a mix. I would say that's not entirely Square's fault. They had Nomura in pre-production for 7 years with that game. It's like at some point they had to do something about it, right? They had to make a change. So I think it's probably mostly the publisher, but that there are certainly some cases where it's on the developer. But I feel like Activision and EA, I think EA has probably gotten a little bit better about this in the recent years. Activision more so. They just seem to not care about the quality of the game, because they know that as long as their name is on it and the developer's name is on it, people will buy it regardless of the condition. And I think that's a shitty attitude to have.
Yeah. I think
it's clearly working. I mean, Activision is one of the richest company.
Yep.
Top 5.
Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, I think, was the top selling game last year, regardless. So.
Damn, man. Yeah, I mean, I missed one developer out. Capcom developing Street Fighter 5. You know, when Street Fighter 5 came out, it was bare bones. There was no modes, and they thought, you know what, we'll just patch it later. We'll add it back in. That really was the case of, I think, lazy developers, because they said that was part of their plan to release it bare bones and support it later. They wanted Street Fighter 5 to be a platform like Lego Dimensions, to which they could just keep adding and adding and adding. People weren't happy because the game actually came out in very bare bones fashion.
I don't think it even sold 1.5 million copies.
It didn't reach their targets, did it? Yeah.
The only thing they do is support a competitive scene. Like they put $250,000 on like the championships, the Capcom championships.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. They do.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that the game is necessarily fundamentally bad, like core mechanics, gameplay, but it came out so bare bones, and you need to be strong out the gate so people get hyped for it. I think only the competitive scene really are pushing it right now. I don't think anyone's talked about Street Fighter 5 since it came out. You know, like who do we know that actually talks about it? You know, and it's because they made people wait for so long for these additions and that kind of thing. What do you think, Zach, about developers sometimes intentionally thinking that they can push them out, saying that it's our plan to do it, but really they would just want to rush the game out and patch it later? You think that was the case for Capcom?
That's the same thing as, I know that you want to talk about this as well, but that's similar to me as Telltale Games. They do this just because they think like, oh, we got this out the door. We can take our time with the next one. We could take 3 months or 6 months. People are still going to buy it, or they'll buy the season pass and then they're roped into it. I think it's shady. I don't like the business practice of doing that. I think, I mean, who's to say if people are willing to? It goes back to the old thing of like, with the market, it's like if the market wants it, then so be it. Same with the Switch and all these other things, but I don't like it. It's why I don't support Telltale. It's why I didn't buy Street Fighter 5 when it came out, because I looked at the amount of content and there was just nothing. So I didn't bother to buy it. Even right now, it's on sale on PSN for $20, I think, and I still won't buy it just because of how they release that game and the condition they released it in, and I won't support them. So I don't like to support that type of business.
I feel like even the Street Fighter community doesn't like the game. Like I follow the Street Fighter community a bit, like competitively. A lot of them don't like it. Like
they had an issue with it being exclusive as well, because I know at Evo obviously the preferred controllers were 360 controllers, wasn't it? Like a lot of Evos, people would either use fight sticks or they use 360 controllers, and and obviously after you have an exclusive, unless I'm not even sure if there's a PC version of Street Fighter 5, but There is. Okay, so that's fine. I mean, so the people who were 360 players or ones that were multi-platform players, they really got pushed out, you know, when they became exclusive for that. So I know that from that perspective, maybe the Street Fighter community would be. But that's the thing, though. You're going to have to please someone. Someone's going to kind of spread the word of mouth about your game. And that's the problem with games releasing unfinished. You know, there's no point making a game a 10 out of 10 a year and a half later when it came out as a 7 or something, or 6. Because you had that moment to kind of tell people what it is and what it isn't. And word of mouth is good, decent, but, you know, there's only so many gamers out there that can kind of spread the word of mouth and stuff. And, you know...
there's a sound.
So, you know, Zach, you bought... Sorry. From me?
Is it me or is a sound coming?
It's from you, I think. It sounds like printing, like a printing machine.
It sounds like crickets, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's not me though. It's not me. I got no background sound. But actually, you know, yeah, Zach, you brought up Telltale Games when it came to this kind of season pass thing and DLC and hoping that you'll support the game in the future. I actually want to talk about Telltale game. Now, even if you guys haven't played any Telltale games, you know that Telltale do one specific type of game. They take multiple licenses. When they came out with The Walking Dead Season 1, they could do no wrong. Everyone loved them. But since Walking Dead Season 1, they've just taken on license after license after license. They've tried to cram those licenses into their usual format. They've got a dated engine which doesn't run as well as it should do. There's a lot of stuttering. There's a lot of glitches. There's a lot of games crashing. And they continue to put out these licensed games in the same format they've always done. You think that Telltale's lost the goodwill that they used to have? You think Telltale means what it used to mean? Or do you think they're just going to keep going down this route, license route?
I feel like they were overrated, pretty overrated to begin with. Like,
overrated too, yeah.
I don't know. Most of my friends that were excited for Walking Dead Season 3 aren't excited. Aren't that excited. Mainly because I feel like it had delays or something. That was one of the reasons. Like, yeah.
I mean, the games don't. Yeah. The games don't set the world on fire no more, man. Like they don't do what they used to do. I mean, I remember when The Wolf Among Us came out, it didn't really do so well, which is probably why it's not gonna get a sequel. I know Walking Dead always as well, the name. You think Telltale are like this company now where their games will only sell on the strength of the name or the license? You think that's the case, Zach, or do you think they can kind of improve, or the games are like fine as they are, being how they are?
Until they create a new engine, I think Telltale is relying on the names of the titles that they're releasing. So they're going out of their way to secure these big franchises like Batman and Guardians of the Galaxy because I think they know that their engine is shit. And so they try to circumvent that by getting these big name franchises on board. So you can say, oh, well, from the creators of The Walking Dead, we have a Batman game, we have this, we have this. When I really don't think they've ever been that great to begin with. I think they've been overrated. I'll be honest, maybe this is blasphemy. I didn't even really like The Walking Dead. I got bored of that game. I was on the final episode and I stopped playing the game because I was so bored. Never went back to
it. What made you play so far? What made you play so far into it?
Because I was like, what are people seeing in this game? I have to see it through to the end. And I was just like, I can't. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I was on the final episode and I'm just walking around slowly, talking to people. This boring dialogue. It didn't do it for me. I don't like that style of gameplay.
Yeah. You think they try to cram all these licenses into their format, their particular style of storytelling in game, and sometimes it underserves that. A lot of people have said lately that Guardians of the Galaxy isn't really that great. Like it's been kind of lukewarm what people have been on Guardians of the Galaxy. Some people were more positive on Batman. I think that may just be because of how invested you are in the license rather than anything. But do you think it's always you think everything can be fit into the Telltale format? But I think some things just can't be done, and they're taking on these licenses. Nick?
What was the question?
Yeah, the question was, do you think everything can be telltale? Like telltale, like everything can just get slapped with the telltale treatment, like choice and consequence, storytelling. Do you think Telltale need to actually make a frigging game now? Or do you think the fan base are happy with them coming out with these things?
Like
they hit and miss. The sales are hit and miss.
I know that Walking Dead sold well. Like I don't know Batman stuff. But
I mean, it's more about the franchises. I mean, I think Telltale don't diverge in it. They think that they can keep making the same game just with a different skin. You know, like Dynasty Warriors. People say every anime game that comes out is just a Dynasty Warriors clone with a new skin on it. That's essentially what Telltale is now. They just same engine with the same structure, but with the skin on it for that kind of thing. So the next thing I want to talk about, we're kind of Telltale. I guess you say, I don't know if you can call them a AAA developer, but I want to talk more about Kickstarters and indie developers. What do you think about Kickstarter? I actually wanted to, particularly Nick and Zach, I want to ask you about Kickstarters. Do you think when the whole Kickstarter craze started, everyone was really hopeful for them? And some Kickstarters have been hit and miss. A lot of the Japanese Kickstarters are in trouble, whereas the Western ones lately are starting to show more promise. What do you think about the whole Kickstarter thing? And do you think majority of them will take off? Do you think it will be a success, this whole Kickstarter model? I'll start with you, Nick.
Like, I feel like hopefully more gamers are more like aware. From like 1 out of 5 games are actually good. The ones that are on like $1 million+ dollars. The only one I can think of is Shovel Knight. I thought it was a very good game. So I don't think they will support the game as much. You mentioned like what hack and slash game, or what was it?
Hellblade.
Like, I don't know how well that succeeded in the Kickstarter, but
that apparently they reached their goal for Hellblade, which is it's meant to be it's got the budget of an indie game, but it's got the visuals of a mid-tier game, like a mid-tier game. They want to kind of find a niche that isn't all Kickstarter indie. They want to kind of go a bit more upscale for that. But do you know, like Mighty Number 9, you know, Keiji Inafune, that Japanese guy, his game flopped, man. Mighty Number 9 was like a travesty. You guys all heard about Mighty Number 9 and how it came out. And then after Mighty Number 9 was receiving bad reviews and all the news about Trouble came out, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night got pushed a year. 1 year it got delayed, Nick, Bloodstained. You think these kind of nightmare scenarios are gonna make people doing Kickstarter reevaluate because I don't think they know how well these games are gonna do once they're put out into the market. Do you think it's gonna scare them now into being a bit more safe for them and not as ambitious as they were, Zach? Or you think there's a bright future for Kickstarters?
I've never been a fan of Kickstarter, but back to what I said, you know, the market will dictate what is worthy of being created or not, and it's a risk. I don't personally support Kickstarter games because I feel like if they get funded and then the game does well, obviously they'll start to print copies and then I can buy the game. But I'll never support a Kickstarter game just because I don't want to pay for something that's incomplete and something that's not a sure thing. Now you could make the argument that any game is not a sure thing, that you're risking your money regardless. But I think Kickstarter is more risky. I think because there are two sides to Kickstarter. The one benefit that I think of is that the developer is only beholden to the consumer because they are the ones funding the game. The consumer is the publisher. But you also have the risk of, like, when they have a legitimate publisher on their back, I think that makes them work a little bit harder, move a little bit faster. So I think I think they can get a little bit lazy if they know that, oh, they can just wait. They've paid the money. We'll take as long as we like, or we'll put it out now. We've already gotten the money. Oh well, sorry. Take it in the condition that it's in. You paid for it already, and this is what you get.
So. It goes against the whole update thing, where, you know, Kickstarter developers, they really want to keep people updated with dev docs and update videos and that kind of thing. Is it surprising that Mighty Number 9 was able to come out in the state it was, that people were completely unaware of the state it was going to come out in, with all the updates that they were given and all the delays they had? You think this would have been picked up on before the game even came out to reviews and that kind of thing?
I mean,
or you think people are actually happy? The backers were actually happy with the game that came out? What do you think?
I feel like they knew the game would be bad once they saw the horror trailer. Like, I don't know the trailer.
I mean, even the footage, you know, the character animations, the backgrounds, the that kind of thing. I mean, I think Mighty Number 9 could have got worse reviews than it did. I think the backers would rather have had a game than no game at all, man. It's just been scrapped, and money would have had to be returned, and all that stuff. But then there's also the subjective quality to it. Like, who says that this is a bad game? You know what I'm saying? Like, Kickstarter paid for this because they believe in the guy. The game they got, yeah, maybe it has, it's rough around the edges, but as long as it's functional, you can play it from beginning to end. It has a story, it has certain features. I think most people agree though that this was one of the big prominent Kickstarters, and the money that was being thrown at it, like they were way past their stretch goal. And I think it's right. You have to be accountable to the consumers and stuff. You think we'll get Kickstarters down the line which are going to be more ambitious, a lot more money being thrown at them. A lot of these Kickstarter guys actually had to find publishers because they're actually becoming more ambitious with their goals. So like 505 Games is going to publish Bloodstained. They didn't have 505 Games as published on Bloodstained Ritual until recently because their stretch goals got more and more. You think ultimately we'll get more, B tier, mid tier games in Kickstarter in future, Zach?
Yeah, definitely. I think didn't Mighty Number 9 get a publisher as well? I'm not sure who it was, but I feel like they got a publisher at some point.
They must have got a publisher, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's only bound to happen because I think a lot of these publishers that are B tier are afraid to invest money when they don't know if it's actually going to be a success.
Yeah.
Mighty Number 9, I feel like that's an interesting situation because Keiji Inafune is a legendary developer. He's made great games since the beginning of his career. I don't think anyone expected that game to flop the way that it did.
Yeah.
And I don't know who the publisher was again, but I'm sure that they were disappointed. And so maybe other publishers will look at that and be a little hesitant. But I think if Bloodstained comes out and Bloodstained is very good, which I think it will be, I think that will propel more of these games to come out. I think if Bloodstained does well, I think that's like the key for this type of game to continue.
Even Keiji Inafune was working on Recall, that Xbox One exclusive, that also
Flopped as well.
just didn't do nothing. Flopped as well. Like, and you can see some of the way the gameplay was designed. I saw some footage, and King Recon was playing it, and people who had played it told me that it has a Keiji Inafune structure to the game, and that's probably what he did. But the game didn't do well, and actually that brings me onto the Microsoft fan base. You think Microsoft fan base has just received? They don't get a diversity of games. It's always the shooters or the racers that they don't really necessarily want these things anymore. I know people want more games. Sony fans want more games, and they'll take everything they're giving it as long as it's of a good quality. You think Microsoft's fan base is a fan base that just doesn't want these kind of games anymore? That they're used to their shooters, their military shooters, that kind of thing. What do you think of the Microsoft fan base? How do you think they kind of perceive games?
Well, I think they want games, just that they don't get games.
They want games.
What?
They don't. You said they want.
I think they want games.
Yeah.
Like different genres or whatever.
But we saw Lost Odyssey. Like, we'll give you an example, 360 era, when JRPGs came. Microsoft thought that, okay, look, we want to get some JRPG Japanese support. They got Tales of Vesperia, they got Lost Odyssey, Blue Dragon, they got a bunch of shovelware JRPGs, and they even got Final Fantasy 13. And those games didn't seem to do well on their consoles. I mean, least of all in Japan, and then I think that burnt their bridges. You think necessarily that they want more games, so it's just they want more shooters, more sort of grey-brown military marine-based games. Like, what do you think, Zach? They have tried in the past.
Yeah, I think that if you look at the original Xbox's launch and the fact that the killer app launch title was Halo Combat Evolved, I think that set the Xbox in stone as more of a shooter-based console. And I think that audience looks for different kinds of games than, say, on PlayStation. I think PlayStation having this deep history of JRPGs and other types of action-adventure games and stuff like that, Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter, those types of games, I think the audience that is the majority of the audience that is on these consoles has a different view of what they want in a game. So I think that Microsoft, it's tough because they are sort of forcing themselves into this Japanese style. They're trying to secure these developers and go towards the Japanese. And then you have games like, you've been streaming this recently, Lost Odyssey, that are good. And so you see that and you're like, well, why can't they do it? I just don't think the audience wants it. I don't. Lost Odyssey is a good game, but it didn't blow up on the Xbox 360. It didn't do extremely well.
Yeah.
I don't think the audience wants those kind of games. I think PlayStation has that in the bag. I think that's why you see games like Persona and Neo as exclusive, even though it's not made by Sony. I think the audience
that brings me that. Yeah, sorry, Nick. Go on.
I think like Xbox, or Microsoft, does really bad by shutting down an entire country's gaming community, like Japan's gaming community. If you know, like Japan is one of the biggest like gaming developer countries. Of the gaming. I feel like by shutting it down, it does a lot of harm to Xbox. Like Nier, Persona is selling good. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. You think they should try a bit more now? They shouldn't just burn their bridges. They should actually just keep trying. You think they just tried once and bowed out, and they should like actually get core developers? Is that what you're saying?
Like I don't think they should have exclusives, but like like something like with Final Fantasy 15. Like Persona come on both consoles.
Third party.
Third party.
Yeah, I mean, Sony really like swallowed up anything that could have been third party has become second party. So Persona's second party.
I think Microsoft tried to get these games behind the scenes. I think that the Japanese developers looked at the Xbox One and they said, "There's not enough out there to justify the cost of spending extra time and money on this console when there's not nearly as many units, and we're not going to make as much money back. We'll just go with PlayStation, which has this massive install base, and we'll save time. We'll get the game out quicker. We'll spend less money." And we'll get a quick investment return, and more likely sales from PlayStation.
Yeah, but you know, it's interesting. You guys say that like we kind of entertain the fact that maybe some people want new games, but some people are happy with the games they got. So one thing I want to bring up, I think I spoke to you, Ryan, is that in the group that people think Microsoft aren't doing well, and they think that Microsoft has no games, but that's only when you talk about them relative to Sony. If you talk about relative to Sony, they are behind the race. But it's been said many times that Microsoft actually doing okay, like compared to the 360 era. They actually, in their own ecosystem, their own kind of fan base, they're actually doing well with the games they released. Halo Wars, they're doing a sequel, Halo Wars 2. They're doing well with what they have. And do you think obviously that ties into maybe people just keep wanting these games and they'll continue to support them? Do you think it's fair to kick Microsoft while they're down when they're actually doing okay by themselves? Or do you think everyone is always saying relative to Sony, they're bad? Because they're not actually bad if you take them on their own kind of merits and that.
Well, I mean, it's the Nintendo thing. Like you can't. You have to compare them. Like we always criticize Nintendo for wanting to be alone. It's the same with Microsoft. If you know what I mean. You can't.
I mean,
they have to compete.
Because they're the only direct competitors right now. Nintendo's claim they don't compete with these consoles. Actually, coming back around to Nintendo, the kind of things that Nintendo have adopted for this gen. So they've decided, okay, we're gonna adopt DLC for games now, like full on DLC for games. So isn't Zelda gonna get a DLC? Is that what I heard correctly? Yeah, that's gonna get it. So they've picked and choose things that we remember from last gen. DLC was such a Xbox 360 gen, PS3 gen thing, like like DLC. Now Nintendo are really kind of embracing DLC, but they've kind of missed out party chat, full on native party chat features from Switch. So they've picked some things and they've decided to half-ass some things. You think Nintendo really don't compete with these consoles, or they're actually maybe telling people that we don't, but they actually really slightly on the side really actually wanting to compete with these other bigger consoles? What do you think, Nick?
I don't know.
I mean, when Horizon and Zelda came out, people couldn't help but compare Zelda to Horizon. Like people, if even if Nintendo don't think it, indirectly the fans want to compete their titles, their exclusives, that kind of thing. Do you think Nintendo just chat shit that is friggin'? I don't want me to be derogatory towards Nintendo. I know it sounds that way, but do you think they just chat shit, that they really do want to compete with these consoles? And that's just BS that they're saying we don't compete.
I feel like
Nick,
they have, or I don't know, like I don't have.
Yeah, you're not sure. It's hard though, isn't it? Like to think that if you're 3 consoles in the market, instead of buying a Horizon for a console you have, I know people who just didn't buy Horizon, didn't buy Persona because instead they wanted to get a Switch. If that isn't competition, then what is? Because they lost out sales on Horizon, they probably lost out sales on certain other things. So I would say that they are direct competitors. What do you think, Zach? Do you think it's all BS that they're not competing, or?
No, I think they really believe that I really think that they believe that they're not competing against Sony and Microsoft. The fact that they don't have a party chat system in 2017 is unbelievable. That right there to me shows that they don't care about competing, because that talking to your friends and that's this social experience that gaming has become over the internet is so integral to why PlayStation and Xbox are successful, and for them to be so tone deaf to miss on that, I think it has to be intentional.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way that it's not intentional.
Yeah, exactly. So, what do you guys think for the future? Like, as far as next generation console, we're coming towards the end of the podcast now. Your hopes for the future of consoles? Do you think we still got another generation of consoles in us? Or do you think the nature of gaming is going to change? Maybe more focused on VR, augmented reality. What are your kind of expectations or predictions for like future gaming after this generation? I'll start with you, Nick.
I feel like I don't know why, but I have a feeling like gaming industry is going more towards PC.
Yeah.
Like it's getting bigger and bigger. It's a big. I think it's pretty. Like I think it's bigger than the console industry. Like it's more money into it than the console.
Yeah, but you think the console, the console space is pushing people towards PC? Is that the future? You're saying? You think ultimately people will be pushed towards the PC space, gaming space? That because these consoles are getting more like PCs anyway. Is that what you're saying? Like that's the future?
Yeah, I think so. Like I feel the only reason to get a PC, a console, is for exclusives.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, as Microsoft are heading back from that, like Zach, you were saying, like Windows 10, they were on Windows 10. So it's like they're actively encouraging people to go on PC. Sony are going to be the only guy left because Nintendo clearly don't say they compete, that are pushing the exclusives. What do you think, Ryan? What's the future, man? What do you think the kind of realistic future for gaming is in the future, like console-wise? You think we'll just have one console that's going to be a platform for regular updates? What do you think is going to happen?
I think if you look at gaming's biggest franchise, which is Call of Duty, as an example, and how that game, despite all its criticism, continues to sell extremely well and be the top-selling game every year, I think that if you use that as an example, you can sort of apply that to hardware and say that I think dedicated gaming hardware will exist as long as there is a market for it. I think expectations play into it. So I think that PS4, the way it's doing right now, I think as long as it continues on this trajectory and it doesn't fall off a cliff, I think there will be a PS5. The problem really comes in where if, let's say, Microsoft drops out and they go full PC and Nintendo goes mobile or something, I think that is where we run into an issue, because if Sony's the only one, they can do whatever they want. So there will always be dedicated gaming hardware as far as I see it. But if one company takes over the market, that's an issue for us as consumers, and I think that might push people towards PC.
Like talking about Nintendo with mobile, I think like how is the 3DS market? I think that's a pretty good topic for now. Like, does 3DS
the ecosystem was so was so successful that they can emulate that on the mobiles, especially with the strength, like the power in modern day kind of smartphones. Do you think Nintendo will go full on like mobile, like have AAA, well, as what they perceive to be AAA games on mobile. Like they're great Marios. You don't.
No. But though I feel like they're going more handheld, especially
handheld, yeah.
All their consoles are handheld technically.
Yeah. They want to merge it now. They want to merge those two, I guess. Like you got hybrid console, so you can consider a home console, but you can also consider it a handheld. I think most people consider it a handheld that plugs into your TV. You think there's a few?
Did you guys see the announcement from Nintendo the other day? The new Nintendo 2DS.
Yeah, right. That's right.
They made an announcement on Tuesday. The new Nintendo 2DS. They are releasing a new updated version of Nintendo 2DS.
What's going to be different about it?
The original 2DS was a flat panel; it couldn't fold. This folds like the 3DS, but it just has no 3D features and it's cheaper. And it's called the new Nintendo 2DS XL, I think is what they're calling it. So that's
how many versions are they?
Especially right after the Switch comes out, that they would release another handheld over the summer.
Though, in my opinion,
I don't know.
Like at the moment, I feel like getting a 3DS is a much better deal than getting a Switch.
Yeah, it's got a huge catalog of games. You got some franchises that aren't even on Switch or weren't even on Wii U. You know, Resident Evil Revelations was one example of a game that came on 3DS and it got a HD remaster on PS4 and Xbox One. But as far as I'm aware, it never came to Wii U. Resident Evil Revelations never came to Wii U, like as a console game. And so it's weird, isn't it? Like 3DS has so many franchises on there. It actually outdid the Wii U. Like it embarrassed the Wii U. The 3DS did, because there was some great looking games, it's portable, all that stuff. I think they learned from that when it came to the Switch. You think there's a future? Actually, I want to ask you guys: is there a future where you think that Nintendo will become a third-party publisher? That you're going to see Mario on PlayStation 4 or Xbox One? You think there's a possible future like that where Nintendo sees sense and go, look, we're going to make some money. We're going to release some of our games on as third-party publishers. You think that's a future? Zach, what do you think?
I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah, same, man.
It's such a mistake on their part to do this. They would make so much money if they released on PS4 and Xbox One. They would be the top third-party publisher in the industry. They would beat out Activision. They would beat out EA. I think it's such a misstep to continue to do this. I mean, maybe it's like a pride thing. Nintendo feels like they are responsible for the industry existing in its current form, and so that they have to stay around or something like that. But really, just release on the other consoles already. I don't get the opinion from Nintendo fans of like, oh, Nintendo needs to have hardware. That would be the death of the industry if Nintendo fade out. No, it wouldn't. Let's be honest. Nintendo was never known for their hardware. They were always known for their software. Their hardware was always notoriously underpowered or had some weird quirk about it that was inferior to the other devices. So I really think it's a huge mistake.
Yeah, Nintendo released games on hardware. Nintendo released fantastic games on hardware people don't want to buy. That's really what it is. Like, if you could play those games, you'd actually be more inclined to buy those games if they weren't on their own hardware, because it really does alienate a whole bunch of people who don't want to pay £300 or something for Zelda when they could just make a download game on PlayStation 4 ecosystem. And there's definitely capacity. Nintendo aren't known for having the capacity to host huge digital games and stuff. The games are very small, like 4 GB, 5 GB, roughly like that. The ecosystem on PlayStation 4 or Xbox that they've nurtured over the last 2 generations, they've got plenty of capacity to hold, Nintendo's entire frigging catalog of games that they could kind of get either digitally or think. Nick, what do you think? Do you think there's a future where Nintendo might, one day see sense and publish third-party publish?
I don't think they will ever go like third-party.
Never ever. They're not going to be that smart.
Though I think it would be a good decision for them, but I don't think how the community would react and stuff like that. I mean, they are one of the richest companies in the I think the third or something. So
I mean, I understand why they wouldn't. Maybe there's a pride thing going on. I know Nintendo have a lot of pride. Like at least their management has a lot of pride. But I think maybe if it makes business sense, I don't know what they say to justify the fact that they wouldn't do it. But who knows, man? Who knows? At this stage, it's like anything goes, man.
I think it's because they have so much money saved up that they don't have to worry about going out of business. I saw something recently, like in the last year, that said that Nintendo can lose money until 2050 and still be like they could still have they could still exist as a company if they lost money every year until 2050. That's how much money Nintendo has.
That Wii money.
Wii money, yeah, Wii money.
Yeah, the Wii money.
They did. Yeah, it's a shame though, but I don't know whether all this stuff is experimental. You know, like someone said that Amazon are really smart as a company. Amazon actually make a lot of money. But what they do is they take that money and get experimental. So they start releasing experimental devices, like home devices, home comfort devices. And usually, sometimes they don't do well, but they keep reinvesting money in new things. Nintendo's different. They got all that money, but I don't think it's experimental the direction they're heading in. They have a conscious decision that we want to make gimmicks, and Switch still has a gimmick: gyroscope. You can feel 3 friggin' ice cubes in a glass when you shake it. They're still very much on that flex, you know. Like, so I think it's not smart. I think if they're gonna reinvest, at least invest in smart bets, you know, and it will cost them nothing. In fact, they reduce their costs. But yeah, like you said, man, they got the money to keep on going, even failing all the way. And yeah, that's the case, man. Actually, I wanted to go on to the next topic. One more topic before we kind of wrap up and stuff. This is more controversial, but I wanted to bring it up. And you know, Gamergate was a thing. You know, Gamergate was a thing in gaming. And lately, there's been topics coming up about social justice in video games, about female representation in video games. I was having a conversation with someone, and they both play Mass Effect Andromeda. I have a male friend who in my life who's playing Mass Effect, and Yvette, obviously, I hope Nick, you know Yvette. She's playing Mass Effect Andromeda. She's a female. They both told me from 2 different sections that there's a lot of social justice shoved into games like Mass Effect Andromeda. I know when Horizon came out, I would disagree, but a lot of people said that there's a lot of forced social justice tinged dialogue in games like Horizon and Mass Effect Andromeda. You think? And I was then also talking to a friend of mine saying that, look, gamers and game developers want to tell you that, look, females are a huge demographic in the gaming industry. But the problem is that those figures are skewed because they've taken into account mobile gaming figures now. So mobile gaming figures and console gaming figures are lumped together into this monolithic friggin' statistic that there are almost 50-50 in female and male gamers, which I don't believe. And I don't know what you guys think about that. I'll ask you in a second.
BS. It's definitely
that's BS.
No way, man.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Anyone who grew up in the 90s knows that there's no way that's true in such a quick span of time that demographic has completely flipped to where now males are the lower percentage of gamers. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
no
do you feel that there is at least some conscious effort? Because you guys probably realize Colin Moriarty had to leave the games industry because people took one of his jokes out of context, and they just basically shafted him. Everyone from IGN to GameSpot shafted him, and developers are like this. Do you think there's a move towards more social justice for the sake of it in gaming? Because I never felt like I related to a ball marine or I related to a fox or Spyro the Dragon or someone. Like, I don't feel I need to be represented in the game as long as there's a story out there. Do you think there is a push towards social justice in video games? Do you agree? Do you disagree in that? You think it's just the way it's going? What do you think, Nick? I'll start with you.
I personally haven't noticed any of it.
Yeah.
Like, though, I feel like even the whole world is going towards a more social justice stance.
Yeah. So it's art imitating life. That kind of, is that what you're saying? You think that's
also towards a more nationalistic? I'm not going into politics much. But
yeah. Zach, what do you think? Do you think we're heading that way with the games industry?
Definitely, because a lot of the people on the internet who now have a voice that didn't have a voice 20 years ago now have an influence on what developers are doing in their games, because they can write to the developers and say, we want this or we demand this. You see games like Grand Theft Auto 5, I think it was banned in Australia temporarily, stuff like that. People boycott these games because it doesn't fit their political agenda. And I think it's absurd. I mean, Overwatch is a recent example. If you saw what they did with a few of their characters, and this you can have whatever opinion you want about this. They recently announced that one of their characters has autism, and I personally think that is such a strange announcement to make. They said we're proud to announce that this character has autism. Like, why are you proud about that? Like, I don't get it, man. I just feel like people are going in this strange way, and I'm more of a centrist politically, but I do feel like some of these people on the left side of the political spectrum are going off the deep end. I think both sides have crazy aspects to it, but I think the people on the more liberal side are dictating how like real life situations are going, and entertainment and all these things. They're really having an influence, and I don't think it's for the best, because I think you should just let the creators create how they want to and not try to force them to change their creative vision.
I think one reason why left is dominating the gaming or like entertainment industry is because they are more young, like they're young, like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel
you think it's because
they feel more old, like above 40s or 50s, like that's what I feel.
Yeah. You think it's basically identity politics, because there's there's a younger demographic playing it, and they're all in all shapes and sizes. That you need to appeal to as many of those people as you can, I guess. Is that what you're saying? Like that, so that's why they feel that they're forced by this young generation that are like vocal on the internet to do that stuff. I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, Horizon is different because I don't feel it pushes social justice, but the main character is a female. She comes from a tribe of women. The women run everything. They're matriarchal, so the old women actually run that tribe. And I remember there was a conversation in Horizon where she's talking to another tribe. They worship a sun god, and they always refer to the sun god as masculine. And then Aloy, the main character in Horizon, said, "Hey, I don't see a dick dangling between the sun's legs. Why is it masculine? Why can't there be a sun queen? Why are they going to be a sun king and no sun queen?" This kind of social justice tinged dialogue. And obviously, Mass Effect Andromeda is you got transsexual aliens. You got one. I'm not saying necessarily that just because they have a gay black guy in a game that it's suddenly social justice. I don't believe that at all. I just think that sometimes we put things in for the sake of them to appease or appease people, and I think the games industry in general is very, very liberal. That's the case, and they're not gonna review you really well if they feel as though there's some controversy in your game, which has always been the case. Especially with Gamergate stuff that happened. And so, Zach, do you have any final thoughts on it?
I think the gaming industry is all one big echo chamber. I think that developers and the gaming press, like you look at sites like Polygon and stuff like that, are just extremely far in one direction politically. And so I think they are reinforcing each other's thoughts, and they think that they're in this bubble and that their ideas are the only way. Plus you have a liberal audience that's coming in and influencing what they're doing. So I think that's not going to change anytime soon. I think I don't like diversity for diversity's sake. I like diversity if it's not forced and it's a genuine story that the developer believes in. I think Horizon, you pointed out that piece of dialogue. That's probably the only instance I can think of where I was like, okay, I feel like that was a little forced in. But I think Horizon, for the most part, did a good job of it, and they didn't really make a big deal out of it. They kind of just let the story tell itself, and they didn't emphasize any of this social justice stuff. So I think it can be done right, and I think diversity is a good thing, but not when it's forced.
But still, I get what you're saying. Like, the diversity of viewpoints is good, but doing it for the sake of doing it because you're trying to pander or appease a specific group of people is I think a bit maybe too much in that direction. So to wrap up the podcast, I want to ask you guys, what games are you currently playing? What games are you looking forward to this year? And I'll start with you, Nick. What games are you currently playing, and what are you looking forward to playing in the future? Nick, you there?
Oh, I thought it was Zach. Like,
sorry, I said, sorry. So, what games are you currently playing? It could be what games are you currently playing, and what ones are you looking forward to?
I think you already know. I'm playing that Lost Odyssey. Great.
Lost Odyssey, brilliant game.
Great game.
And what games are you looking forward to in the future?
Looking forward to Crash Bandicoot remake.
Oh yeah, shit. Yeah, that's actually something I'm curious because it's been way like 2-3 generations, man, since I even played a Crash game. Yeah, you actually reminded me. I was listening to someone yesterday talk about it. That's imminent, isn't it? So, what about you, Zach? What games you currently playing? What games you looking forward to?
I've been playing the Kingdom Hearts remix on PS4. I actually have put in 100 hours across Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 since it came out already.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the platinum trophies in 1 and 2, but the stupid
gummy ship
missions. Oh my god, I hate the gummy ship flying so much. That's probably going to be what costs me not getting the platinum is the gummy ship.
Haven't they improved they redefined the trophy requirements for the gummy ship stuff?
Well, not that. So on PS3, if you beat the game on a certain difficulty, the difficulty trophies didn't stack. So if you beat the game on proud difficulty, you didn't get normal or beginner. But now they fixed it. So I just beat Kingdom Hearts 2 on critical difficulty the other day, which was brutal, and I got all the difficulty trophies. So yeah,
that's going to be a very tough trophy, to get. And what about future? What games are you looking forward to in the near future?
Oh man, wow, it's tough to say. Maybe Red Dead 2. Yeah, I wasn't as big on Red Dead 1 as most people, but I'm looking forward to it because Rockstar is a great developer and they always put out quality games. So probably Red Dead, and then also I'd say Crash because Crash was one of my favorite games on PS1. I played all of those games for many hours. I know it doesn't get as much love, but I love Spyro as well.
Spyro
were like the two big things on PS1. So I feel like Spyro, I'd like to see that come back as well.
Yeah, we recently got Parappa the Rapper remastered back in it on PlayStation, and I think they really want to revive their old kind of characters, their kind of prominent characters from back in the day. I hope they do a medieval. I don't know if any of you guys remember. Sorry?
The 3 Jack and Daxter games from the PS2 are supposed to be coming to PS4
Jack and Daxter game.
Yeah.
I hope they remaster Medieval. Do you remember that skeleton knight of Medieval back on the PlayStation 1 days?
Was it the character
he was in Smash.
Sir Daniel Fortescue or something like that.
So, Fortescue, that's it. Yeah, he was in
PlayStation All-Stars on PS3, actually. I remember.
Yeah, I remember he was in there, and I wish they'd bring him back because it'd be interesting to see. Yeah. So thank you guys, man, for getting doing that.
What game are you looking forward to? Like, what game are you?
What game am I looking forward to? Do you know what? I've been talking about a little while. Cuphead for Xbox. I feel as though when Microsoft decided to completely go blackout on that and invest more in the game, I think that could be a really good game. I think that's a game that most people would be used to playing on something like a Sony console, Nintendo console. But I think solely Microsoft needs a game like Cuphead, side-scrolling, co-op with platforming, with bullet hell kind of aspects. I think even the people who are into Japanese games and Western games to come together, especially that unique classic cartoony art style. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing, of course, Crash Bandicoot, and I'm looking forward to what else, man. Really, that's about it, man. Really, this year is unknown after E3, man. Is there any? Actually, one more question. Is there any games that you're really hoping come out down the line that have not been announced? Is there something like a return of the franchise, an old franchise? Do you want a new Metroid? Do you want a new what games do you want to see come back? Hopefully, like a wish list.
Metroid.
Yeah, Nick.
New Metroid.
Okay. New Metroid. Yeah.
I think that would be one of the reasons to get a Switch for me.
Yeah.
Like
new Metroid. But... Yeah. What about you, Zach? A kind of franchise you want to see return?
For me, it's not a very old franchise, but I want Bloodborne 2 more than anything. So much.
Oh yeah.
Bloodborne is my favorite PS4 game. It's right above Horizon. It's very close. I love Bloodborne, and I think it's better than Dark Souls, and I just want to see a sequel.
Yeah, I want to see. I don't know whether you guys played Until Dawn. Don't know if there was exclusive on PlayStation 4. That game isn't usually the kind of game I would regard as like my favorite game. I mean, I think Nick, you might have seen me play Until Dawn.
Yeah.
That kind of and they make games so much better than Telltale. You get Telltale games like Until Dawn was so cinematic, choice-based. They immersed you. I want to see maybe that studio their next game. I want to see hopefully. I agree with you, Zach, man. Bloodborne 2 because I love the music. I love the it's like a third-person Castlevania. We haven't had a good Castlevania in a while. It's basically like a third-person Castlevania, Bloodborne, as we played it, which even the Lords of the Shadow franchise going to do, the 3D Lords of the Shadow first game and second game.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's something I want to see. What other franchises I want to see? As I said, Medieval, man. I want them to return to that. Maybe, hopefully, see friggin' Lost Odyssey 2 or something, Nick, man. Like, we've been waiting for that for a while. I know Uzumaki's also got an Xbox One hoping that Lost Odyssey would get a sequel, but it never came, and I don't think it'll ever come. So that's unfortunate, man. But let's see what happens in E3. Hopefully, maybe after E3 is gone by, we can do a podcast again. Maybe I'll get one or two more people. We can talk about podcasts. So thank you to the few of you that were in the chat right now and you joined us. A big thank you to NickTheBoss from my first subscriber, man, #1 subscriber, and Zach Ryan, who is always a pleasure to talk to, man. And I could basically talk to you for hours and hours about anything that develops, man. And I hope to have you in the podcast on future. So yeah, thank you to Prime Light, Napalm, NickTheBoss, Paddy, all you guys in the chat. It was Kaiser. All you guys.
Streaming? Will you be streaming later on?
Sorry, what did you say?
Streaming later on today.
No, not later on today. I need to quickly go eat, and I might do actually, Nick. Just if I do, it'll be the next hour. I'll let you know though.
Okay.
But thank you guys for being. Hopefully, see you on an E3 podcast. If you like what I did here, please comment when the archive goes up. Let me know what you want to hear about in the future as far as gaming goes, because I know I do anime live reactions, but this was more self-indulgent. I wanted to talk about gaming and stuff. So yeah, peace out, guys, and thank you much for joining me.